Hey kids, it's Jurassic James, and it's Jurassic explains. I'm sorry, the name. It's Thapunngaka, Thapunnngaka. So Thapunngaka. So I may have told you this before in other videos. Paleontology, as we know it today, started mainly in like England, France, and we now call it Germany. And so the names were different languages of these different scientists. And so they decided to use the scientific names as Greek or Latin, because if you were an elite person, if you were an educated person, you would know Greek and Latin translations and things and all that. So a lot of these prehistoric critters have names like that. Well, that idea is pretty prevalent. Paleontology, for the most part, moves across to America. American cultures derive a lot from European culture, and so we keep the Latin and Greek names. But in my lifetime, because paleontology is springing up so much more, because it used to be just European and Western American scientists going out to Africa, South America, and Asia. Now they're looking themselves and their own countries and regions, and so they're naming the critters after either their own language or after local languages. And I do know of paleontologists who are like, they shouldn't name these things Chinese names. They should give them Latin and Greek names. And I get the consistency in the science, and I've had trouble saying a lot of the Chinese names, but I understand also that this is their region of the world. They're fossils. They can name whatever they want to, kind of thing, if you find that you name it right. And so this is actually named after the indigenous, like there's languages there in Australia, in northwestern Australia, eastern Australia, sorry. And so this is a pterosaur. And sorry, that was a weird prelude. Let's get opening with this guy. It's my only model of this. So the official scissors of Jurassic James, we will now free the beast. And tiny little legs. More on that later. I feel like whenever I open these, like I'm cutting the umbilical cord, but then I realize they're not mammals, and so that wouldn't, or placental mammals in particular, so that wouldn't be a thing. So anyway, still there's more parts to. Okay, there you go. So anything to know about this? Just tail. Got it. So you take this little guy here and you do that, and it flaps because pterosaur. Although it is a early Cretaceous pterosaur, so at that point they were flapping a lot less. I mean, they could flap, but one thing to point out, in pterosaur evolution, we see the bone, the keel here. We have a large keel. Think of the turkey, the breastbone. Large keel means large muscles for powered flight. Later pterosaurs, like the Cretaceous pterosaurs, usually would glide more. Anyway, so wait, I should keep the box. I need to say that name one more time. So Thapunngaka. The idea is that, well, one thing that sticks out to me is, first of all, the wings. And I get that Jurassic World has made, like, I want to say 5 or 6 different species of pterosaur. Actually, more than that, probably 10 different species of pterosaur. And so you want it to look different. This flayed wing thing, it reminds me of the butterfly center when I used to work. It's that the butterflies, when they get older, their wings are flayed. Like, that's not the same thing as this, because the butterflies have scales on their wings that are deteriorating. This is like the skin. Imagine the skin between your thumb and your like index finger. If it's stretched out, yeah, were there pterosaurs who had damage and injuries? Of course, but I don't think that they would have some that would just have holes in their wings like this. But it's for kids, I get it, whatever. The first thing to point out is that in 2021 it was named, and they found this part. Not back here, they found this part right here. And there are only, I think, 4 pterosaurs known from Australia. And so this is now the biggest, based on its shape. Now, I use the example. You go to you're kids, but if you're old, you're my age. You go to the doctor. The doctor's like, "We're concerned about something. Tell us about your family history. Your dad's genetics, your mom's genetics, etc." Right? And so paleontologists do a similar thing, but without genetics, because we don't have DNA. The idea is that we look at, well, who's he related to? So we see this very thinly shaped beak with this little crest on top and bottom, and say, you know what? There's more to it than this. But you know what? It's like Tropignathus. This is my Walking with Dinosaurs, Tropignathus, or it should have been a Ornithochirus. There's a whole story behind that. But very similar structure. So the idea is that they find the tip of the beak, they do measurements, and you can calculate how big the animal was. So it's at least 20 feet wide wingspan. So that's pretty big, right? That's me standing this tall, and then there's like more than 3 of me. I'm not 7 feet tall. I'm actually 5'10". And so almost a lot of, it's like 3 point something of me, right, wide. And so the feet, in my opinion, are incredibly upsettingly small. I don't know. I don't know. Pterosaurs do. I'll say this is my own personal opinion. When I look at a pterosaur skeleton, I feel like, and this is just my weird interpretation, it's like God was making the head and he made like the wings, and then he kind of got tired for the rest of the animal, because they have always these little reduced legs and reduced feet. And I get for weight purposes their focus is flight or gliding, but it's like when you look at the lower torso of a pterosaur, it's always like puny and diminutive, and so that's something that I kind of find it interesting that the feet are so small here. The body is made very wide, I think because there's that DNA code thing that they do in Jurassic World here. And so, I had a question the other day. A kid asked me, why do dinosaurs have DNA? And I said, everything has DNA. And they were like, I don't understand. I said, yeah, everything is like the blueprint for life. Like it has all the codes of what makes you, your hair color, your height, whatever. Any diseases you're more susceptible to. And he was like, but dinosaurs have DNA. Why? And I said, no, everything has DNA, but Jurassic Park made a bigger deal about it. And he was like, oh, okay. Anyway, side story. So what's going on here is that it's a 23-foot wingspan. So pterosaurs start off in the late Triassic. As of the taping of this, and my understanding, that we do not officially know the ancestry direct of pterosaurs. They are the closest group to dinosaurs, but they are not dinosaurs. There's a branching off in the Triassic period. By late Triassic, we have pterosaurs and we have dinosaurs, and they go on from there, and they both die out in Cretaceous, except for some dinosaurs called birds, the avian dinosaurs. And so by early Cretaceous, what's really important with this guy is that we find it and its relatives in Australia, and we find this guy and its relatives in South America, and they're very closely related to each other. And so, again, I want to point out the idea that when Pangea formed in the Permian period, we have this giant continent where technically you can walk from Antarctica to like Canada, from Russia to South America, right? Of course, in real life, nothing would have done that. There were mountains, there were deserts, etc. There were lifespans, you don't want to migrate too far. There's new predators so it can get you. So the idea here is that when Pangea breaks apart, it breaks into two first. So the top half is called Laurasia. It's what we call North America now, was called Laurentia before, Europe and Asia. So they break off and make Laurasia. The southern portion was Gondwanaland, which was South America, Africa, India, Australia, New Zealand, Antarctica. And so they're connected for a while throughout the Jurassic and Cretaceous. But in the Cretaceous period, Gondwanaland ends towards the north, Eurasia. They're beginning to break up. So Africa and South America break apart, that iconic kind of shape of those two. And we see dinosaurs in Africa and South America. They're very similar. We see Spinosaurids in both continents. We see Carcharodontosaurids in both areas. And so it appears that, I don't recall if we see many of this lineage in Africa, but they're in South America and Australia, meaning that there's this kind of connection there. Now, I'm not saying they're the same species, by no means, but the idea is that there's a common ancestor that was on this subcontinent when Gondwanaland, and it was separated out, and they evolved into these things that are similar but different kind of thing, right? And so, which is interesting because when Pangea is there, we have very similar dinosaurs everywhere because the environments are very similar. And they're very small by comparison to the later, Triassic period, 230 million years ago. The dinosaurs are pretty small. Most of them were like this tall or shorter. Like they're like, well, you know what this is. I'm sitting down, so it's like 3 feet or shorter. I mean, there's a couple of like big sauropod morphs like the Plateosaurus, but most dinosaurs are small. And it's not until Pangea breaks apart we get bigger dinosaurs. You say that's kind of weird, right? Bigger pterosaurs. That's kind of weird. Well, the idea is that when you have a giant supercontinent, there's green around the coastline, but the middle of the continent is not a desert. So imagine the American West, we have the Badlands. Imagine the Gobi in Asia. Imagine the Outback in Australia, the Sahara in North Africa. When you have a giant continent, there's an area that has more desert kind of in the center, right? And so, but yet on the coast of North Africa, really green, but think of Egypt and the Nile, but the desert's there, right? The Sahara. And so when Pangea is all together, there's this giant desert in the middle, and it breaks apart. And so when you break apart these continents, those areas that were once the middle of a desert break apart and now become coastline because ocean water fills in, and that creates more green spaces. And so the idea is that the dinosaurs and the pterosaurs get more diverse. There's more species, and they get bigger. You think, why would they get bigger if there's less land mass? Or there's still the same amount of land mass, technically. What I'm saying is that when you have this smaller set of continents, well, now you have different environments, different Gulf streams. Well, we have the Gulf Stream, the ocean currents form. All these things are happening. It's changing, and that promotes life. Supercontinents usually kill things, right? I mean, before Pangea, all these little marine are being crushed together into mountain systems, and we find the glass mountains in West Texas with brachiopods that are marine animals in the mountainside, right? And so all this is happening, and so Australia. It turns out that Australia and Antarctica and South America may be connected longer, and I like to point this out because in paleontology, like geology is what the rock says, not Dwayne Johnson, but like what the rock. We see this rock structure, it means this thing, this kind of heat and pressure or whatever. But in paleontology, it's kind of an added bonus to geology, because if you see certain animals, certain areas, you go, wait, if we see this group here, that means they must have been connected longer than we thought it was. And with geology, you want to look at the rock itself that shows they've been broken apart, a new environment, a new whatever. But with paleo, it's like, well, it's Australia, this is in Australia, this is South America, there's a common ancestor, they were connected. And again, bear in mind, many people don't believe plate tectonics is a thing. So that's why I make these points. But again, as far as environment goes, this guy does not live with him. They're South America. Mudaburasaurus, made famous by walking with dinosaurs, and iguanodont hadrosaur cousin. There's the Jurassic World Chronosaurus, which is here, which is really loud and annoying. Here is a Collect A Chronosaurus, one of the largest marine reptiles of all time. And the reason I show you this is that you often see marine reptiles attacking pterosaurs because they're found in the same environment. We're seeing these guys are flying over ocean water looking for food and stuff, probably. And so, and the reason I just want a little side note, last rant, the baleen whales, the modern baleen whales, I love those guys. And people go, why? I say because they're giant, nice guys. And second, most of the large things in the ocean in the history of life on Earth have been like monsters. They've been giant mosasaurs, chronosaurs, pliosaurs, and then we have baleen whales today. Pretty awesome. Anyway, but again, last call. Thapunngaka. And I am not being disrespectful. I'm really trying to say this properly. It's a really cool pterosaur from Australia. Appreciate it, love it, and keep it added to your collection if you are a Jurassic World toy person. I do not know if there's a PNFO or Safari version. I would tell you if I would have found it by now. But yeah, comment on this and subscribe and stuff. And if you're still here, my goodness, thank you for being a subscriber and follower. I will see you guys next week.